So this project sounds really interesting. The guys, from what I read, had a fairly open brief, tried lots of user research techniques, and they're going to tell us all about what they learned from different techniques.
Thank you very much. Thank goodness that's over, because, you know, in the movie, that's the really awkward silence where the crowd just does nothing, and Jake and Elwood, you know, go on and sing and dance and carry on, but thankfully, you know, we're designers. We're not singers or dancers. There's no way that we're going to, what?
Come to the rehearsals, you
No. Really? Really?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Apparently it's so glad to welcome so many of you lovely people here this evening to the Hilton on the Park Ballroom. Certainly hope that you enjoy the show. I'd especially like to welcome those representatives of the Melbourne City law enforcement community who've chosen to join us here at this time. We hope you enjoy the show. Remember people, no matter who you are and what you do to user test, prototype and wireframe, there's still some things that make us all the same. You, me, them, everybody. Everybody needs empathy and love. Empathy and love. Users to test, meanings to miss. We need you, users. We need you, users. We need you, users. We need you, users. What? Hey, what's going on? Who is this woman? Hang on a minute. I know who you are, ladies and gentlemen. Please, would you make welcome to the stage, totally unscripted, Aretha Franklin.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Actually, I really can't thank you enough. Thank you. How the hell did you convince me to do this again?
Why are you here?
But seriously, this is a serious conference. And you better think before you turn this into some kind of a circus.
Now you listen.
You better think before, you gotta think about the consequences of your actions.
Now you listen, you're the woman.
You gotta think!
And I'm the man. This is my conference.
Oh.
This is my presentation.
Getting a little bit over the top now. Matt, she does have a point. Aretha, we hear you. I'll take it from here. Please take a seat. Matt, it's just, you know. We'll get Aretha back up here on stage a bit later on.
Fair enough, she has a point. Thank you, Aretha. We're here, we'll take it on board. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the UX Brothers. My name's Matt, this is Luke, and we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so trying to convince you that there is a very strong link between the Blues Brothers and user experience. That's one of my life goals, I think, being Elwood Blues on stage. And meeting Aretha Franklin. That's 2 life goals ticked off. Okay, so we have this website called UX Mastery. It primarily is educational content for beginners and for user experience designers who are aspiring to take their skills to the next level. And thank you. one of the things that we do under the banner of UX Mastery is we undertake community projects, and we work with a non-profit where we volunteer our services, and in exchange for that we use a case study from the project to then create educational content for our audience, which hopefully is good enough for them to pay us money. That's the business model, which I don't want to harp on too much because that's not what we're to talk about. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because...
So as Matt mentioned, we're working with a not-for-profit called the Mathematical Association of Victoria, and we're very lucky to have here the CEO of the Mathematical Association of Victoria, Simon Pryor. Everybody put your hands together.
Thank you. As you can imagine, a group of mathematicians sitting around a table, they didn't turn up as the Blues Brothers to convince a group of mathematicians to take them on board. If they had, I wouldn't have been here. You wouldn't have had a project. We're very serious mathematicians. Just very quickly, we're a not-for-profit. Our business is learning. We're a community of learners. And we're on about convincing people to learn mathematics and convincing teachers to teach maths in such a way that they don't kill it for everybody. So that's our mission. And if we could, we'd give everything away free. And in fact, for many years, we did. We've been around since 1906. But the world has changed. It's changed for a couple of reasons. And for both, we actually have to make some money. It's no longer possible to sustain our activity without an income. And our members have changed. Our members would once pay a membership fee and then we could give stuff away for free. But what we're finding increasingly is that there's a whole population of people who are driven by buying a service rather than the old school baby boomer model of being a member for something for life. And so for all of those reasons, we need to make an income, but an income that's consistent with our mission. So we can no longer give this stuff away free. People love it. A recent survey of professional associations across Australia and New Zealand found that the MAV was number 3 across Australia and New Zealand for member satisfaction. So our members love us, but our problem is they ain't buying the stuff that we're selling. And that's cue to you guys, I think.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon, for not running away. And we do have a bit of a before and after demo of the shop. We're not going to dwell on it too much because it's not terribly interesting unless you're a maths teacher. But as you can see, the current version, it's very simple, it's very plain. Even though it's simple, it's actually got some big usability issues. There's no visual aesthetic to speak of, and sorry for airing your dirty laundry here, Simon. I'm not sure what's going on with that picture here. But yeah, like there's very little in the way of basic navigation, you know.
So no single product pages, so SEO is not so good. There's a few problems with the checkout process. There's a little bit of friction there. So
a lot of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And in terms of what the nav are getting, we did hope to launch it in time for the conference. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, despite the fact that our amazing development partners, First Studios, have been terrific in getting this out the door. As you can see, visually more appealing, a lot more conventional e-commerce features that we're lacking, and you know, some nice little details as well.
Yeah. So, but we're not really here to talk about the design of the new site. We're here really to talk about the process and techniques that we went through in order to deliver it. And so we really wanted to sort of pull that apart a bit, talk about the killer techniques, which one we found the most useful. And so I suppose you could say, Matt, it's a little bit like a UX talent quest, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We had all of these techniques that we were able to apply, which I think we're kind of lucky, given that there wasn't a real budget, there was more just our time and what can we get done before the conference. So we're here to talk about some kind of talent quest for UX techniques. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the UX factor. I know that we're making a leap from rhythm and blues to bad manufactured pop music, but I don't care because this slide is too much fun to make.
Making that slide.
Like no matter what changes we made last minute, this was staying in.
So, as Matt said, yes, we are here to talk about techniques. and in particular, see if we can find one that people found maybe the most useful, the killer one that gives us the most insights for best bang for buck, all that kind of stuff. Now we're very lucky with this particular project. Simon was generous enough to let us negotiate a timescale for the project that was quite insane, about a year. I think it was just over a year ago that we first approached.
How many techniques can you think of? We wanted to apply all of them, and we didn't get to all of them.
Yeah, so not just 1, 3 techniques, 5 techniques, we did 30. So, and we had a really genuine motivation to sort of carry these techniques right through, because as Matt sort of illustrated before, the content that we were producing from these techniques would eventually end up on the UX Mastery website as practical materials for people learning UX. So we had that sort of vested interest to make sure it was right. And of course, it's a scientifically, proven method. One technique, it's not subjective at all. So please take it with a bunch of salt. Don't bust our chops too much. And if you're thinking about this, how would you answer if someone asked, what's your favourite technique? Why? Do you have what it takes to be able to weigh them up, know the strengths and weaknesses from them all? How would you pick that one killer technique? So even though not really a scientific method, we do have some evaluation criteria.
So our evaluation criteria we called the matrix of awesomeness, and there's the matrix, and basically is just a big list of all the techniques that we applied, and we had a bunch of criteria that we asked ourselves upon reflection after the project, how well did this technique fulfill this criteria? So for example, things like how well did it get stakeholder buy-in? How useful was the technique in delivering qualitative and quantitative data? Did it elicit user goals? Did it elicit business goals? Did it reveal users' behaviour, or maybe reveal to us opportunities where we could create delight for the users? And did it help establish empathy with the users or with the stakeholders? And did it help the client establish empathy with their users? These are all the things in our matrix. We had a very complex weighting system, but basically the more boxes that a technique ticked, then the higher it was rated. So that's all interesting, but we're very interested to know exactly what you think. So
what we've got here, we've got a live polling system. What we'd like you to do, please, everyone pull out your smartphone, fire up Twitter. And what we'd like you to do is just tweet the number next to your particular technique that you think is going to be, the most useful, give you the most insights, all that kind of stuff. Just tweet that number to @poll, @POLL.
we're going to mask the results so we can find out at the end. So we've got about a minute for you to tweet your favourite number, and we'll find out at the end what everyone thinks is the best UX technique. Come back and find out what everyone in the room thinks is their best UX technique. But in terms of running through how we chose our favourite technique, we're going to make it a little bit hard on ourselves because we're a little bit insane. So what we're going to do is we've got 10 classic lines from the movie The Blues Brothers, 10 classic quotes. We're going to play those quotes. Aretha has a briefcase full of UX techniques, and Aretha's actually going to circle around and have people pick out a technique, read it out, and then Luke and I are going to alternate in explaining how we applied the technique to the project while incorporating that classic quote into our explanation. Be prepared for some very long bows to be drawn.
Tenuous links.
Yeah. So Aretha, have you got your techniques bag? We'll play the first technique while she circles around and has someone pick out a technique.
What's this?
What?
This car. This stupid car. Where's the Cadillac? The caddy. Where's the caddy?
The what?
The Cadillac we used to have. The Bluesmobile.
I traded it.
You traded the Bluesmobile for this?
No, for a microphone.
A microphone? Okay, I can see that. What the hell is this?
All right, so that quote is, where's the caddy, the caddy? Where's the caddy? What's the technique that Luke's going to be tying this quote to?
Stakeholder interviews.
Rightio. Okay, so stakeholder interviews, you go and you talk to the stakeholders in the project. It might be the CEO, Simon, might be other staff, it might even be some of the users, depends on the project. With the MAV, we did this very early on. We got everyone in the room and talked to them all together, sort of worked out what we're here for, all that kind of stuff, and we also went and talked on them one-on-one. So probably the goal of that was to establish some expectations, what we're actually going to be delivering. If we talk about, a website being a bit of a bomb of a website versus a Cadillac of a website, then, we're really wanting to be able to meet those expectations.
Nicely played. Okay, next.
Curtis? I don't want to listen to no jive-ass preacher talking to me about heaven and hell.
Jake, you get wise. You get to church.
All right, you get wise, you get to church. What's the technique that I'm tying this quote to?
Contextual inquiry.
Contextual inquiry. Right. Contextual inquiry is one of those stalwarts that we probably rely upon all too often, and is with very good reason, because if you don't go out and interview and observe and shadow people to find out what they're doing and how they're doing it, then really, how are you going to be able to design for their needs? So I think if there's any resistance to the idea of having budget to go and do contextual inquiry, then that's not good enough. Cameron Rogers might be in the room. He wrote a good article about getting user feedback. No excuses. I think you get wise, you get your user contextual inquiries happening. Next.
Have you seen the light? Yes! Yes! Jesus H. Goddamn Christ! I have seen the light!
And the technique for this classic quote is?
User testing.
Right, okay, well, that's a good one, isn't it? Really. User testing, we go out there, we talk to our users, we find out what they think, not just what we think. And I think that's really setting it up beautifully for enlightenment. Like, you get to see and hear things that maybe you wouldn't have thought about yourself.
How did you get the epiphany one?
Oh.
Next.
Well, it ain't much, but it's home.
How often does the train go by?
So often you won't even notice it.
So often you won't even notice it. What am I tying this to?
It's affinity diagramming.
Affinity diagramming. Okay. So affinity diagramming, I have a confession to make. This is the first project that I actually did some affinity diagramming on. Luke showed me the way. I think previously I'd done a lot of stuff in my head, whereas the complexities and the sheer amount of data that we generated from all of the interviews and stuff that we did for this project was such that there was no way that we could not just put everything on the wall and group it and map it around. So, I had some preconceptions and there's ideas that I had that affinity diagramming helped me organise and highlighted some things that were possibly right under my nose and I hadn't seen it. So, something's under your nose, any kind of technique that lets things come to the surface so that if you don't even notice them, all of a sudden you will notice them.
Did they leave a forwarding address, phone number?
No.
Did they live quietly? What were their personal habits?
They were good boys, but they made a lot of racket at night. Are you the police?
No, ma'am. We're musicians.
No, ma'am. We're musicians. What's the technique that Luke's going to be tying this to?
Interactive prototype.
Interactive prototyping. Interactive prototyping is one of my favourite things. Helps us bring those early design sketches, get them into a clickable prototype like we did with the MAV, some wireframes and something like that, and put them in front of the users. Obviously that changes when you're testing lo-fi designs versus final designs, but It gives you a lot of really good feedback, and I think that if we think about our role as user experience designers, this is going to be very tenuous. Our role as user experience designers is to elicit that feedback, and maybe that's a bit of a foreign concept to some people, so they might wonder who we are, and we're not the police, no ma'am, we are user experience designers.
You listen to me. I love you, but I'm the man and you're the woman, and I'll make the decision concerning my life.
You better think about what you're saying. You better think about the consequences of your actions.
Oh, shut up, woman.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me, yeah. Think, that your mind will let yourself be free.
What's the technique, Aretha?
Well, first I'd like to apologise to all the Aretha fans in the audience.
It's website analytics.
Website analytics. Data-driven design decisions. This is where I think, clearly we need to think about the decisions that we're making. The Mav shop didn't have any analytics on it when we came onto the project, so that was the first thing that we did, was whack some analytics on to find out exactly how much traffic it was getting, get some data on conversions, and immediately, even though analytics only gives you the what, it doesn't really give you the why, we were able to see that there was some massive drop-offs and conversion rates were pretty awful. So, there were some easy wins, but by the same token, we weren't prepared to just go and stick a out-of-the-box shopping cart on there. Even if it was going to lift things, we wanted to go the extra mile and make sure that our solution was targeted to the maths teachers that were going to be using it. And so we definitely needed to think about the design decisions around customising that experience. That'll do.
We'll be here all night. You see, we're the band.
You are? Oh, gee, that's nice. Hey, Bob, this is the band.
All right.
What kind of music do you usually have here?
Oh, we got both kinds. We got country and western.
Yes, country and western.
Up the back?
Up the back.
Competitor reviews.
Competitor reviews.
Right, competitor review, okay. So, competitor review, we did one of these, obviously. Going out there, we looked at, for the MAP project, other mathematical associations in other states, looked at the National Association, we looked at overseas ones, we also looked at other shops that sold resources or membership. So I think that was important because we did sort of come to the project with some expectations around, what are we doing, what features need to be included in there. And this clip obviously talking about there being two kinds of music. We know there's not two, there's three, right? Country, western and blues. Right. So going out there and getting the competitor review sort of stuff expands those, busts outside the borders and helps you stop being such narrow-minded.
Very good.
Yes, you. Could you fill it up with premium, please, and check under the hood?
Sure. You, want I should wash the dead bugs off the windshield?
Oh, no, don't worry. I'm in kind of a hurry.
You want I should wash the dead bugs off the windshield? Aretha?
Collaborative sketching.
Collaborative sketching, okay. We did a couple of collaborative sketching exercises which were really fun with the MAV staff, including one where you make the product box, where the MAV shop was a cereal box with the nutrient information on the back, and encouraging the staff to try and think about the unique selling points of the products. We also did collaborative sketches of the homepage and kind of iterated a couple of times of what people thought the ideal shop homepage should look like. And I think this is a really good way to simplify and focus on what's important and, if you will, wipe the dead bugs off the homepage. Because as we all know, homepages can have a lot of clutter, and there's a lot of techniques that can be useful for wiping the dead bugs off. Apart from the fact that, the software bugs, that's the literal bugs. Yes, anyways, yeah.
Oh, please don't kill us. Please don't kill us. You know I love you, baby. I wouldn't leave you. It wasn't my fault.
You miserable slug. You think you can talk your way out of this? You betrayed me.
Indeed.
Over on the side here.
Yeah.
Customer experience map.
Right, okay. Well, first I've got to say, if we don't do our user-centered design process right, then you're going to have a user like this to answer to. Customer experience map is something that I've often tried on different projects. It hasn't always been part of the UX plan, but on this project we got to do it and we found it really helpful. So you could say that user experience map sort of gives you an overview of the process that a user might go through, what they do before and after they're interacting with the product you're designing for. And that's pretty key, understanding the motivations of the user, the pressures that are on them before and after, that sort of stuff. Both at a high level and at a detailed sort of interaction level. And that's definitely, helps you make sure you do your job right. You're not have to be answerable to a user like this.
Very good. Last one.
Jake, I gotta pull over. Southbound on State Highway 47.
Yes, Jake, I've got to pull over. What am I tying this technique to, Aretha?
Heuristic review.
Heuristic review, right. Yeah, this is going to be a stretch. Doing a heuristic review of the existing shop was pretty straightforward in that it was lacking a lot of best practices and conventions that we could just go, hasn't got this, hasn't done this, did this badly. In a sense, I think you have to be careful that using a heuristic review and not actually getting any user feedback, you can head down one certain direction. And it's important to remember that you've got to pull over and validate those assumptions that you make when you rely just on conventions and best practices. Very good. Let's have a look at what you guys thought was the most useful UX technique. And I can't see from here, but the winner that you guys voted for was definitely user testing. No surprises there. Actually, I kind of, going into this exercise, I thought user testing is definitely going to be what I thought would be the most useful one, but what was it?
Well, we can reveal our one. Adding up all those all the criteria, we found
the experience map. Yes. And this is the experience map that we created for the Maths Association of Victoria. Did you want to talk through a little bit about it, Luke?
Sure.
It's kind of hard to see, but
yeah. This particular one is based on an approach by Adaptive Path. It's worth mentioning too that Adaptive Path has a website out, a new one, mappingexperiences.com. It's worth checking. Some very good
free PDF guide to creating experience maps, mappingexperiences.com. Definitely worth checking out.
So it is a little bit of a cheat to say that this is the one technique, because I suppose to get to it, of course, you need to have some data input, and you might can get that sort of stuff through contextual inquiry and user testing, things like that. So a little bit of a stretch, but this
it's our presentation.
That's right. I think adding up all those criteria, looking at how to sort of add it up, it's got a few features that really bring it home, and that's things like this 10,000 foot view. Often, I know for me, working on UX projects, you get very close to the detail and the micro interactions and the visual design and things like that. And I found it really helpful with this project to take that step back, have that 10,000 foot view of the whole process, of things outside the scope of the product that you're designing for. You really get to know your users a lot better. And even though it doesn't produce the data, really encapsulates the quantitative and qualitative stuff and allows you to see that. And that's really important, not just for the design team or the development team, but broader than that too. Because it includes that range of context and things, it actually can be really useful for bringing your stakeholders on board and communicating all that kind of stuff as well. So, I mean, for all those reasons, we think it's fantastic, and you should try one if you haven't before. Final point there, orchestrating. So bring it home to a blues theme, why not? We've got a whole bunch of instruments available to us as designers, and being able to sort of tweak our techniques that we choose, triangulate, looking at where we need to find extra data, really tweak it up and find that sweet bluesy tune.
So just finally some reflections and some learnings from the project for us. We said before that this was a project where it was unique in that we had no constraints and we could apply every single UX technique that we had in our briefcase. The reality is there are always constraints. Even on this project, for example, agreeing to talk about a project at a conference is kind of a good kick in the ass to get stuff done. But I think it's good to embrace constraints. Sometimes they can be the trigger for you to be more creative. The best technique for you to use on your project, as we said, this isn't scientific. We think it's a pretty good exercise to make it as objective as possible, but there are always projects that are different and personalities and things that are going to mean that you're going to still have to have that briefcase of techniques available to you. We definitely recommend you try creating an experience map on your next project if you haven't done so before. We found it really valuable both in getting our view of things and in getting buy-in. People love visuals. The board at the MAV and all of the staff were able to see that view of the customer journey from that 10,000-foot view, which was amazing. But when you apply all of these techniques, boy, do you end up with a lot of data, a lot of transcripts, a lot of audio, a lot of
gigabytes.
Yeah. Any tips on how to triangulate and manage that amount of user data?
I suppose this is something that's very familiar with people working on large projects. But you do your research. You don't just rely on just collecting the data and then purely processing it after. We found it really helpful to finish a user testing session straight away. Write down some findings and key things that you've brought from that. So you don't have to churn through a whole bunch of stuff after.
So we have a heap of people to thank. We're not going to read them out, but that's the list. We're very appreciative of the MAV for entertaining this crazy idea that we had when we approached them. And everybody else on there, thank you very much for your support. And I'm not sure if we have any time for questions or not, but we're happy to take them. Thank you.
As possibly the only project in history that's done all, how many?
Over 30.
30. I'm just, as an experiment, I'm just curious, would you say there's a point where you're not adding any more value? And possibly even going backwards?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. We wanted to, so we're creating an educational product and we wanted to demonstrate how to apply as many techniques as possible. And we found that there was overlap and that there was techniques to be applied and it produced the same thing as the previous techniques. So it was kind of redundant. And then in other cases, it produced different data. And we were like, right, so it wasn't redundant even though we expected it to be. But would I advocate having a UX project plan that listed all of these techniques to get all of this data? No. But yeah, it was an interesting exercise.
First off, great talk, guys. Well done.
Thank you.
Also, you cheated a bit by saying experience, Matt, like you said. What was number 2?
Which slide?
Good question. RESPCT.
RESPONSIVE design, yes.
It only just picked user testing. So I think that I'm grateful that came in very close second.
I'll jump in there and affirm that, but clarify in that one thing I've found to be really useful is showing recordings of those user testing videos in terms of getting buy-in, because user testing is great for the epiphanies and for validating ideas, but the experience map that we found was crucial for buy-in and getting staff on board and involved. But it's a lot harder to get someone to watch an hour of user testing videos to make your point. It's a lot easier for them to look at a pretty poster. So yeah, so user testing, I would vote number 2.
Yeah, and coming back to Shane's point there, just a huge amount of data that was generated. I think the customer experience map helped us steer through all that a lot better.
Hey guys, did you think also about doing an experience map for the future? Because you see it a lot of the experience map for the current state, but it doesn't seem to be used for what it could be, and that seems to be the one that people really find hard to struggle and grasp.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something I considered. This being a record of the current state of the site and what are we heading towards. And I think if we wanted to extend that further, then that's a really, really good point that, being able to have that same sort of view of the 10,000 foot, saying, look, here's where previously there was some confusion and some pain points, but now having implemented this sort of approach or this solution, that here you can see how it affects that. And I suppose it's not informed by data, so it's a little bit tricky to do that. But yeah, there'll be value in being able to sort of chart that journey.
Kind of like backcasting from the future. Yeah. Visually, I like it.
With trying over 30 techniques, how did you manage stakeholder fatigue?
Stakeholder fatigue. Yeah.
There were a few meetings where some people didn't turn up, but I think what we did was really, like Matt talked about, collaborative sketching, and that was one of the things that if we established a bit of a reputation as not just having some dry deliverables to sort of talk people through and have dry presentations. We actually tried to make it really interactive and give people ownership of that sort of process. So,
did you want to comment on that, Simon?
Yeah. One of the advantages I think they had was that we were an education organisation. So something that struck us all as we went through all of these processes was that many of them are the sort of processes we engage in when we're trying to think about the learning we're trying to deliver or the community that we're trying to engage with. So we were comfortable and familiar, really. We felt as if we were in territory that we sort of understood, and I think that's why we did still enjoy the whole journey.
Hi, it's a related question to that, but did you think by doing so many different kinds of techniques that you had to limit the number of participants in each of the techniques compared to what you would have done in an ideal scenario, and you would have been able to, did you have to compromise on each technique in order to get so many done?
So we applied the techniques over the course of, it was kind of, from start to finish, almost a year, working part-time, kind of not dropping in on the MAV for a few weeks and then showing up, and so there was some downtime between them seeing our faces again, so it wasn't like we were in their face every day saying, here's the next one! So that was part of it. Also, some of the staff worked part-time, so on different days, different people happened to be present, so it worked out actually quite well, but sometimes we had different people involved in the workshops to get different perspectives. So yeah, it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of favours that we called in with either MAV staff or their contacts, or my partner's a teacher too, so got a lot of other teachers at her school involved and sort of paid them in kind. With
my daughter's primary school teachers know me very well, if they didn't already.
So lots of stuff. So yeah, we're going out from the start, picking a project and saying, look, we're going to do this amount of conditional inquiries and testing or whatever, and having a budget for that kind of stuff. I think we totally exploded out of the water, but wasn't necessarily financial, so we kind of coped with it.
Was there a least favourite technique or one that you wouldn't want to repeat on any project at all?
For me, maybe it's heuristic analysis. It's one of those things I think. It was really important for us early on where we were trying to get up to speed with the project, understand the systems and processes internally. It didn't add a lot of value. I felt like a lot of it just came from known principles and stuff, which it gave us a record to work from, but didn't really add heaps and heaps of value.
It's also worth mentioning that some of the techniques we could do without users, like analytics, like competitor review, and so we divided and conquered rather than like both of us sitting there in a paired designing fashion going over it. So I'm pretty sure I gave you the competitor review because I just wasn't interested. But yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That was completely awesome, and I think that the room next to us is probably going, oh.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.